Alright guys, it's TL Gamer here, and I will be discussing why Skyrim mods have problems, and I'll also be going over a few additional things. And so, I got coffee being made, so I'm going to wait for that to show up. And then what I'm going to wind up doing is starting the stream once some people come in, because I'm pretty positive there's going to be, because of the title of this, it's going to be bringing in some of the assholes from the modding community, and you'll hear me address people a certain way or something like that. That's because if they do, it's because I'm doing it for a reason. So it's not just one of these, well, you know, you're just calling people names. It's a little bit difficult to explain. So I'm just going to wait for a couple people to get in, and in the meantime, I'm going to wait for my coffee to be done, and I have to check on my daughter, so just give me a few minutes. Hey, how's it going? Just give me a few minutes. I'm waiting for some people to get in. Oh, my screen came down. Give me 1 second. I gotta fix that. There we go. There we go. Never have I had a problem with a stream. Alright. Got my Mall of America t-shirt on. Yes, I've been there. My wife and my daughter went. Yes, I know that's hard to believe. People are like, oh, you should get laid. That doesn't even make any sense. Actually, let me stand up so you can see this better. Mall of America. It's a little hard to watch, but that's alright. As I said, I'm waiting for a couple people that actually wanted to come in and watch this, so I'm also making coffee, so just give me a few minutes. For those of you that are here for now, what I'm going to explain is, in case you're not familiar with my streams, I want to give you a rundown on how to actually watch them. Because what I mean by how to watch them is I go over very specific things, and the way I explain stuff is I don't just throw shit out there. I'll literally explain the explanation. So it's a little confusing, but once I lay it out there, it'll make sense. So just give me a few more minutes to get my coffee, things like that. So I think a couple other people are going to come in here. As I said at the beginning, when I first started this, I'm probably going to get some people coming in here, and they're probably not going to like what I have to say because it goes against the way the community works. But those are the people who skip through my videos, take bits and pieces out of them, don't follow everything I'm saying, because if you skip half of the stuff, if you skip pretty much anything I say in these videos with specific subject matter, you're going to get lost. It's not going to make sense, and that's what people do. They will butcher my videos. They will say, well, this guy doesn't make sense, you know, or they'll say, I skimmed through your video, despite me saying, if you skip anything in this video, it won't make sense. They'll skip it, and then they'll say, well, you don't know what you're talking about. But yet they'll say they skipped it, so it's just kind of interesting. So I might have some of the assholes from the modding community coming in here, and if I address people a specific way, it's for a very specific reason. I'm not just saying that to say it. And that's like anything else in my video. So my coffee is almost done. My coffee is almost done. When I get my coffee back, when I get back here with my coffee, I can't even speak today. When I get back here with my coffee, I'll begin, and I'll begin by explaining. You have to understand how the game itself is programmed. But I don't know who was in here, because somebody wanted a couple of pieces of information on what to do for a poll for the videos or something like that. So this is kind of like off the subject of this. But what I'll explain is how I set up my polls. It's not the only way to do it, but it's the only way I found to make sense if you're not going to be streaming it, because you're not going to scroll through 2 hours of live stream chat to get an answer on a vote for what game somebody wants to play or anything else like that. That just, to me, doesn't logically make sense. I mean, you could do it if you want to waste the time, but you'd be going through almost every single minute of a video. So yeah, give me a second. I'm going to go get my coffee, but before I do, I'll just quickly explain, Witcher, since you're here. how I set up a poll. What you do, and at least when I use YouTube. So this is for a YouTube section. But let's say the live stream I'm doing now, I wanted to turn into a poll. What I would do is I'd start the video as unlisted so I can get a quick, 40-second video. Then afterwards, because nobody's actually going to join your stream, it doesn't really matter. Because you're not streaming it, you're using the stream to get a video uploaded to YouTube as a poll. So I usually started off with an unlisted. So when I did my what game do you want me to play, I actually put a list of games on the screen in my background, like where the system is and shit like that. So give me a second. I gotta fix one thing on this. I just realized something. The live chat is going to show up in this section in a second. I want that in the stream. There we go. All right, so give me 1 second. I'm going to go get my coffee, and I'll be right back. But before I go, basically what I do, Witcher, is I start an unlisted stream. Sorry, I couldn't even think of the name. I just had to look it up. So, all right, I start an unlisted stream, and I'll record it, and I'll say, hey, guys, I'm going to stream on, X date or whatever it is. Here's a list of games. Pick one from the list. Whatever one, gets the most votes is the one I'll play, and I won't reveal that till Monday. Or so, whatever you're going to do. That's all I would do. I'd make a quick video like that and then leave it alone. Once it's processed, and then you can just leave it unlisted, because once it's processed, you basically tell them to use the comment section below the video as a voting system, and then that's it. So after once you get the vote, you just remove the video, because there's no point, because that's already past the point. That's all I do. So where it's said in the upper corner about the system specs, what I would do underneath that is I would say, hey, here's a list of games, blah, blah, blah. That's the way it is. Give me 1 minute. I'll be right back. And I'm going to go get my coffee, and then I'll start the stream about this. Alright. I'll be back. Hey, get back in here! Give me a second, I gotta get her. Say hi. is my wife. Come here, honey.
No.
Come here, Alana. Come here. Come here. Come here. Nope, nope, nope. And this is my daughter. So yes, people are always like, "Oh, you should get married. You should get out and have kids." I do. And for the record,
we hardly see him. He's always in here, so it's like I'm not married. You know.
Anyway, all right. And
We'll deal with that. I don't know.
all right. So anyway, did you find your keys? Why is what? She had it. She didn't go in there. Don't worry about it. I got her out with it. All right. So anyway, actually, one thing I'm going to get out is Mr. Steak Fry Jr. is I should have been a little bit clearer about what I was going to talk about. When you're streaming, just so you know, these companies that I have a really big problem with companies that act bigger than they are, or when I say companies, it could be 3 people, 4 people, but I have a problem with streamers like Faust TV and places that have websites set up like that, where they have, you'll see that they have like a ton of views, but what happens is people don't understand how that works. I don't care who you are on the net. There is no person on the face of this planet that can keep more than, I'll give leeway on this, more than 25 to 30 viewers from more than 15 minutes. All those views you see, like 1,000 views or somebody's currently watching, is crap. All that is they've called people that they know to have them either open their cell phones, or they have mass computers that they have access to where they just go to YouTube Gaming or whatever they're doing it on and just click on their stream. It counts as a view, period. So what, all those views are not actually even legitimate people. They're just them going from multiple sources, which I don't understand, considering that's literally the same thing as view botting. It's literally the same thing, because they're not actual viewers. Nobody in the face of this planet can have 35 to 40 viewers, 100 viewers on a consistent basis every time they stream for the entire time they stream. It's just not possible. So that's the reality. It's not a bot. What it is if I log into another computer here at my house, as my wife has a computer, and then I use her cell phone to go to this stream, what's going to happen is it's going to count as 2 additional viewers, even though I'm logged into myself. Now, that's not against the rules, but I don't see how it doesn't construe being as view botting. So the thing with my channel is, the reason I brought that up is so you understand that when I talk about something, I will give you the entire rundown on everything. I won't hold anything back, because a lot of these places that you see will tell you only the side of things that they want you to. But what you have to understand is what they're not telling you is the issue. But how do you look for what they're not telling you? And that's where my channel comes in. So I will... it's hard to go against the masses, because I've been doing this for an extremely long time. I've gotten death threats. I've gotten, threats to get beat up. I've gotten people agreeing with me. I've got people not agreeing with me. I've had game testers that work for the company write blogs about me, because I caught them cheating in a stream and I called them out on it. They wrote a blog about me, and they thought they hit it, but I have enough people that I know that can find the stuff that they're doing, and they link me to it, and then I'll make a video about that. So the thing here is, don't do streams if you can't handle criticism. To me, I just don't care what people say, because you really can't argue with anything I talk about without sounding dumb. And it's not that I'm trying to one-side it. It's just I don't say, well, here, this just sucks. It's like you'll get somebody in a stream. So basically, this is going to explain to you how my streams work and how to understand what I'm talking about in the stream, and then I'll get into the Skyrim issue. Basically, what happens is people will say, "Oh, I don't like this game." Now, that you can have an opinion. That's an opinion. That's not a fact. You don't like... Well, it is a fact that you don't like the game, but it's not... It's a generic opinion. So what happens here is somebody's like, well, why don't you like the game? Saying you don't like the game is not actually an argument. It's not even... It's nothing. It has no validity. Great, you don't like the game. That's an opinion. And so what happens is people will say, I don't like the game. Why? Well, the combat system sucks. That's not an argument. That's an opinion. That doesn't tell you... It doesn't make any sense. It's not. It's if you look at half of the stuff that people say that they don't like a game, there's never any structure to what they're saying. They're just like, I don't like this game. Oh, the combat system sucks. That's not an argument. You can have that opinion, but don't use that as an argument. So what winds up happening is a friend of mine actually gave me a really good explanation, and I use this from what I'm about to say came from my friend. It didn't come from me, but I love it because what he says is correct. And by the way, I have debates with my friend about certain things all the time. So, anyway, saying you don't like a game is one thing. Saying the combat system sucks is the same thing as saying the game sucks. What you have is, you can't say the combat system sucks as an argument. You have to structureize what you're talking about. So, oh, I don't like the game. Well, the combat system sucks. What about the combat system? Say what it is. You don't like the way the guy holds the gun. You don't like the animations. You don't like the way the game reloads it. You don't like the shooting style of it. You don't like the way there's a structure to it. So as you can see, compared to what I said, compared to what they said, the example I just gave that my friend gave me, as you can see, there's really no structured arguments on half the stuff that's on these websites and on the forums. Which brings me to the point on how to read this stuff. Because if you don't understand how to read this stuff and where this information is coming from, it's a lot harder to understand. So, what happens here is I don't care if somebody argues with me. If I have a screen opened up and says there's no text instructions on the screen, and there isn't, anybody trying to say there is, or it's obvious, is their opinion. It's not an actual counter-argument to what I'm talking about, because I don't care about, I'm not asking somebody's opinion. I'm literally asking, is there text instructions on the screen? It's just a yes or no question. There's nothing to debate. So, when somebody says, well, that's your opinion, so what they basically just did is says, oh, my opinion says that there's no text instructions on the screen? No, there is no text instructions on the screen. So, why are you trying to say, it's my opinion, as you have some special copy of the game where there's a message saying that you need special glasses or it's invisible? You know what I'm saying? It's a ridiculous counter-argument. All right, I'll get to. I'm explaining how to watch my streams. Give me a second here, honey. It's Karen. All right, sorry about that, PS Gaming. You weren't here at the beginning, so what I'm going to do is I had to go over. I was answering something in there. That's just how to read my streams. So, and that's how to watch it and understand what I'm talking about. So without that baseline, with that baseline, sorry, let me rephrase this. PS Gaming, with that baseline, you'll have an easier time following what I'm saying inside the stream. That's all I'm saying. So a couple people also asked me a couple of things, so I apologize for that, but I didn't want to make a separate video about that for like 2 minutes. So, alright, now, on to the actual Skyrim issue. Now, in order for you to understand this, you have to go back and understand how the game was programmed. So I have to go into detail about what the way the game works in order for you to actually understand this. Bethesda, in this... No, that's not what... See, here, all right, here's a case in point when somebody tries to debate with me. PS Gaming, nowhere did I say that. That's not even close to what I said. So, if you're going to say a statement like that, use what I actually said. Don't rephrase what I said. Don't say I said stuff I never said, because I am going to correct you on that. PS Gaming says, I said anybody that talks to me is dumb, and that's not what I said. I said anybody that tries to argue with something that I've put up that can't disprove it is dumb. There's a difference. So anyway, getting back to the point of the issue. Okay, so you have to understand how the game works. In order to do that, you have to know what Bethesda did to it. And this is where the problem begins on why people say there's problems with moddings. It goes back to the very beginning on what Bethesda put into the game, what's called a consequence system. No, it has nothing to do with that. If you're going to challenge me, prove it. Because if I open a screen, like I said, here's an example. If I open a screen and say there's no text instructions on the screen, you can't argue saying there is when there isn't. Anybody who's saying there is, prove it. Because if I open up a screen in the game and show that there's no text instructions, and I say that there's no text instructions, guess what? You can't argue that. It's a fact. So, people trying to use their opinion about what to do on the screen isn't a valid counter-argument, so no, I won't let them use that, because the statement isn't about what you would think. The statement is just, what did I just say? And then people are actually taking what they feel like it and trying to add to it. So no, whatever, I'm just clearing things up, that's all. Because I have no problems with somebody saying something, but I will clear up what they say if they're taking what I'm saying and changing it. So, anyway. So when it comes to very specific things, yes, you're right. I won't allow people to argue it because either A, there's nothing to debate about, or B, you can't debate it without being dumb. So what winds up happening is you're trying to cherry pick where you say I'm debating it, and it doesn't work that way. So for example, this conversation right now, yes, I'm not letting you debate this because you're trying to use information that I never said and change what I said into a debate. There's nothing to debate. Either I open it, if you either back up what you're saying or you don't, and I got no problems. If somebody can back up what they're saying and disprove me, I have no problems coming out and saying it. But don't sit there and say this is explained using your opinion from a viewpoint. That's an opinion. You have a right to it, but don't use the opinion to try to override a fact I just put out, because I will cancel the argument. So that's about it. So let me get back to this because I will get back into the Skyrim mods and what the issue is. All right. So anyway, you have to resort back to how Bethesda made the game. Bethesda put a consequence system in this game, in Skyrim. The consequence system is you live with the decisions you made. So when people start saying, I should be able to get a quest log out of this journal if it failed. No, actually you shouldn't. Why should you? Well, it should be it should be removed. Why? Who says? You? Because you don't like it there? That's not correct. And so when Bethesda put a consequence system in the game, they set it up so everything you do is it. That is why if you kill an NPC that is needed for a quest, because you decided to go off and do it, and that you can do that, there's nothing wrong with that, guess what? You now can't turn in the quest because you killed the NPC because you went off doing whatever they felt like it. The consequence is for that, not only can you not turn the quest in because you shouldn't be able to, but you killed an NPC that was related to the quest. Period. If Bethesda didn't want that character killed or it wasn't allowed, they would have put inside the character, I forget the code for it, but it's something to do. There's a code. I can't remember the script code for it, but it literally has a 1 after it that doesn't allow the NPC to be killed. That is why you can't kill crucial NPCs and why you can't kill children. The code for that prevents that from happening. So if for people to say, well, I should still be able to turn this quest in, no, you shouldn't. And the fact that you can't turn the quest in proves you never should have been able to begin with. Now, people can argue that that's an oversight, but when you actually start applying that system to the game, you realize Bethesda specifically put... I'm not defending Bethesda, because Bethesda makes a lot of mistakes, don't get me wrong. I'm just explaining how the system works. So they put a consequence system in there. And what happens and why this ties in with mods is because the start of this is if people don't like the fact that they can't get something out of their inventory, or they can't get it out of their quest log, they'll say it's a glitch. Or a bug. Bethesda put out a crappy game. No, they didn't put out a crappy game. What happened in this case is they put something out that you disagree with because it's a consequence system and you don't want to live with the consequences of your actions. And the reason Bethesda did this is because this is actually in interviews. I can't find the interviews anymore or I would link them. But Bethesda, before even Skyrim came out, Bethesda went into depth on what they did with their gaming system. Not only did they do the papyrus scripting, but they actually went into in-depth information on what they did to the game. And in almost every single one of their interviews, they said, you have to live with the decisions you make. People are cherry-picking where they want that. But what they don't realize is that if you kill an NPC you have to turn a quest into, live with the consequences of your actions. I should be able to get this out. It should go into my finished quest log. If you didn't finish it, why should it go into your finished quest log? Why should you even be able to get it out of your quest log because you decided to go ahead and do something? So the reason Bethesda did that was it's the first game in history to this date, and I think it's the only game since then that has basically forced a player to live with not being able to do something. So another example of this is the instruments for the Bard's College. Not being able to get the drums or any instruments out of your inventory is not a bug, and you're not supposed to be able to get them out of your inventory. The reason you're not supposed to is because it's tagged, that item is tagged in your inventory, making you known to the game and the scripting for the game for the Bard's College to let the game know that you are part of the Bard's College. Period. So this is the stuff that people don't understand. So they think because they can't get it out of their inventory, or it's, even though it's triggered by the quest or the script to accept it, it's what Bethesda chose to do with that item. Just because it's triggered by the script doesn't give anybody the right to say, well, I should still be able to get it out of your inventory. No, if Bethesda wanted you to be able to get that out of your inventory, they would have done that. There are two other instruments do it. It's only the drum. So what happens is, this is where the start of these problems come into, and why modding starts becoming a problem. Because the first thing you have to understand is how the game is put together and how it interconnects with everything else. So starting with the baseline of console commands. The instant you use any console command, you've destroyed your game. Whether you see the problem or not is not relevant. That's like saying, I don't see a dead-end road, so they don't exist. Just because you don't see them or you never encounter them doesn't mean the dead-end road is there. That applies to the modding in simply the same fashion of, when you read people say, well, I don't have a problem with this mod, or I've been running this mod for a while, so, why are you saying there's a problem with that? I've been running to never encounter that. That doesn't change the fact that if there's a problem with it, just because you can't see it doesn't mean the problem doesn't exist. It just means you never saw it and you never ran into it. Which is, I'll bring that up in a minute, because that is tied into this, because this is extremely intricate when you're making mods. What happens is, people don't want to take the time to listen to everything that I'm talking about and understand how the game is programmed, so they understand how to create the mod. So they just go by YouTube videos, which leaves out all this information. But this information I'm telling you is why mods have a conflict. So what happens is, people will think that they can watch a YouTube video and make a mod like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, if you don't do everything that I'm explaining when you're creating the mod, it's most likely going to run into a conflict. And so what happens is, there's a statement I use, and it won't make sense at first, because it's like, what the hell does that mean? There is a major difference between using the creation kit to make a mod and making a mod using the creation kit. Making a mod using the creation kit is just throwing together something and putting it into the game. You use the creation kit, you're making a mod using the creation kit. However, if you use the creation kit to actually make a mod, you go through the entire process of actually, from start to finish, creating something that you're going to put into the game without actually using something from the game. So let me explain what that means. Every single time a player has a problem with the game, they will blame Bethesda. But I can prove to you, by going to any forum for any Elder Scrolls game from Morrowind on, the same pattern will occur, and you will see this. So this is how I prove this. And it's something everybody sees but doesn't take knowledge to, and that's why I point this stuff out. Every single time somebody has a problem with a game, an Elder Scrolls game, after it comes out, somewhere in their topic title, they say, oh, my game's broken, Bethesda broke this. Here's a list of mods I've made. 99% of the people that have a problem with their game in their topic have mods listed. If that doesn't explain to people and show people that clearly, if you're using mods and your game broke, mods broke your game. It doesn't take that much brains. But people will argue that point, because what happens is, if you look at every single player doing that, they're only looking at it from their end. It's an individual. It's like microtransactions. Microtransactions of, let's say, a penny don't mean much. But if you get 1 million people making microtransactions, you just made $1 million. So people don't look at it on that scale. They only look at it from that one person's point of view. However, if you go back and you actually look at all of the topics, the common factor between all of them is, they write, I have a problem with the game broke, or Bethesda broke, here's a list of mods I use. What? And so when you start realizing that everybody's doing that, that's when you realize that mods break the game. That's how you prove mods break the game. Now, I'm not saying everybody has problems, mods broke the person's game. I am saying that there is a 1% legitimate problem with the game, which usually gets patched. And that brings me to the unofficial patch. I have watched when the special edition of Skyrim came out. Before the game, literally, not even an hour after the game was released, somehow there was an unofficial patch for it, stating what it fixed. How can you possibly play the entire game in an hour, go through everything, and then have an unofficial patch that's listed that fixes problems there's no possible way anybody could have even encountered yet? It doesn't make any sense, and this is the stupidity of the modding community at its finest, because even pointing that out, everyone ignores it. It's ridiculous. it's ridiculous how much stuff gets ignored. So again, you have to not only you can't really just look at what people are saying. You have to look at what they're not saying, and then that's where the issue comes in, because how do you know what to look for? Now, we get into how the game actually works. The system itself is extremely intricate, meaning if you go into the creation kit, almost 90, I don't want to say 90% of the people, but most people in the modding community take something specific and they work with it. I can tell you anybody that's making followers. So for example, I'm going to address the person that was making follower mods. Do you know anything about nav mesh? I'm going to let the person answer that, so just give them a second. The stream's behind itself, so I'm going to let them explain it. So when you make a follower mod, you have to know about nav mesh. When you made your follower mods, do you even know what nav mesh does, or what it's for, or what its purpose is, or why it's in the game? Did you even use it? And I can guarantee you I know how you made your mod too, and there's nothing wrong. I'm not talking down to you. I'm just saying, I don't know you from a hole, and I don't even know who you are. But I can tell you, I can guarantee you, I almost can pinpoint exactly how you made that mod. So if I'm able to do that, clearly I understand how the modding system works. You know what I mean? And this is what I'm getting at. And this isn't your fault. How do you go about finding out mods if all the information you're getting is not complete, or it's missing information, or they don't explain it? Okay, so you understand that nav mesh. Do you know how it works in the game? Knowing what it is and knowing it's there and using it are different things. But if you don't understand how it actually works and how to program it, that's a different story. And there's other things you have to do with nav mesh. It's not just about knowing it. It's knowing how to apply it in the game. So do you know what I know you know what it is, but do you know what its function is for and why it's there? No, I get that, but that doesn't change anything. That doesn't, you can have early access to a game, but that doesn't mean anything. So my question to you is, when you were doing follower mods, do you understand how nav mesh actually works? Do you know what it means to program nav mesh inside the creation kit? Do you understand how to actually input the nav mesh? No, the unofficial patch has way too many things in it that, no. A handful of people cannot come out with that an hour after. It's not even possible. You would have to know. You would have to encounter every single thing in the entire game at that point, which there's no possible way. Right, right, that's what it does. That's what nav mesh does. But do you know how to input it into the game to make that work correctly? Because you can't just throw it into the game. See, these are the details. I'm not saying you don't. I'm just asking you. Because the reason I'm bringing this up is clearly I understand about nav mesh because... do you know what nav mesh even stands for? Not that that's important, but the phrasing on that is a little weird. Do you know what nav mesh actually means? What that term means? So this is what I'm saying. It's like everything I'm explaining, I'm going into detail. I don't just say it. Yes, actually it does. It absolutely does. So let me clarify this, and some of this you may know. And here's the thing, you may know what I'm saying, you just may not be able to either explain it right, because I run into that problem too. I run into stuff that I'm trying to explain stuff, I'm like, I can't explain this right. I know what I'm trying to say, and it turns out that we were saying the same thing. So you may know everything I'm talking about, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what you don't know. That's ridiculous, because I don't know you from a hole in the wall. For those of you wondering, nav mesh stands for navigational mesh. Its mesh is the coding or the grid layer that allows the NPCs to walk around without falling through the map. It must be implemented in a very specific way, and you need to actually adjust the nav mesh to the terrain, otherwise you'll have NPCs walking up over the, with no gravity and everything else, which is where Havoc data comes into play. So it's, like I said, I'm probably going over everybody's head, but the fact of the matter is I'm explaining this in explicit detail because not only am I basically justifying that I know I have a right to, I know exactly what I'm talking about, but it's also going to educate people on what you may not know. So that's how it works. So it also applies in with the the Havoc data. It applies in with everything you're doing, and it's really messed up. So you literally have to be very careful about how you put the nav mesh in. What happens with people when they make follower mods? The usual mod is they will take it. How the creation kit works is you can copy over make copies of something that's already in the game. And those things are locked, which is why when you do it, it doesn't actually alter the actual main ESM file. Hold on a second. Okay, all followers, if you don't have nav mesh on the ground, the follower doesn't know where to go. It'll fall through the map. So regardless of who it is, a follower is an NPC. Now, I understand your terminology, but let me separate it. A follower is nothing more than an NPC that has very specific coding that allows you to follow it. You can turn any NPC in the entire game into a follower if you program it right. So a simple follower mod isn't actually simple. It's a misleading wording. So if you understand how the followers work, it's a follower. The scripting is what allows the NPC to follow you, not the mod itself. It's the scripting. If you understand how the scripting itself works and understand where to put it inside the NPC, or what causes that, you realize that they're not actually that simple, because a follower is basically nothing more than an NPC with the scripting to allow you to follow it. That's all it does. In simple terms. And so why nav mesh is important is because if you don't have nav mesh on the game, nav mesh in the game doesn't matter. A follower follows the same pattern. A follower will fall through the map if nav mesh is on the ground. Nav mesh just basically, in that case, prevents the follower from falling through the ground. No, you're right, because the nav mesh is already there. The follower doesn't care where the nav mesh is. The follower follows you. It doesn't follow a specific pattern. That's the difference, because you basically, when you're doing an NPC that's walking around, it has an entire, I forget the terminology for it, but it has an entire AI, I don't want to say AI package, but it has, that AI package tells the NPC when to go to bed, where to walk, and everything else, which is connected to the nav mesh. A follower doesn't have that, because a follower is just programmed to follow you. That's the difference. So you don't need to make a new nav mesh for it. When nav mesh is just a navigational mesh, again, that prevents the follower from falling through the floor. Same thing with an NPC. But if you want an NPC to actually do something specific, you have to program the NPC to that specific nav mesh in that specific area with the coordinates and everything else. That tells the NPC, do I need to go to bed? Do I need to change my clothes? Do I need to eat? Do I need to go out to this area? You literally have to program the NPC to do that. A follower has a very specific, different script package that it follows, so it follows you, but still has its own kind of programming code on it. Does that make sense? Nav mesh on the ground just prevents the NPC from following it. Once you have nav mesh, you can actually program the NPC or the follower to go to a specific, like you can add nav mesh to the ground. However, if you don't, any NPC walking over that will go up to that. So yes, you can have multiple layers of nav mesh, but if you were to put a secondary layer of nav mesh, so you only want one specific NPC to do that, you would have to program into every single NPC in that entire region not to go up to that, which means opening their data and then programming it so it implements it into their AI package. But the problem with that is you can't interfere with their current package. So if you do that, you can actually cause a problem. And so that's why this is more intricate than just throwing together something. Now, why people have a problem with NPCs and follower mods and why they cause a problem is because here is the exact reason why. Most of the time, and there's nothing wrong with this, but this is what you have to understand when you're doing this. You have to understand what you're doing when you make a follower mod. Most people, or even not even a follower mod, just any NPC in general, or anything. Actually, you know what? Let me back this up. What I'm about to say applies to everything in the entire game, no matter what you're doing. Buildings, trees, wind, rain, anything. Weapons, anything. This process affects everything in the game. What most people do, right, it's not just copying the NPC scripts. It's literally copying the NPC because there's other things in there that you have to go through. In other words, if you copy an NPC, you have to literally go through that NPC and hand go through every single page and click delete. because you don't need to make a copy. You literally need to make a new NPC. So what you do is you copy the first NPC and then you rename that NPC to a different name, totally completely different. Don't even leave the word copy in there just for purposes of understanding this. So what happens is if you do a copy of an NPC, you are not only copying the data of that NPC, but you're copying the code line of that NPC as a copy. So if you don't go through and you don't hand remove every single thing from every single screen, including the Havoc data from that NPC, your copied NPC will eventually start doing what the other copied NPC does. That's why problems are occurring, because with this particular case. So if you take an NPC that's supposed to be in Stormwind, or whatever, I don't even know, yeah, I think it's Stormwind. Oh my god, I'm talking about WoW, what the hell is wrong with me? Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, my God. Ignore that. Ignore that. I can't believe I just did that. All right. So, if you... Stormhold. I can't even freaking... I didn't even know the first town. It's been so damn long since I played this. But if you take an NPC out of a very specific area, what happens is that NPC is programmed for that area. Copying that NPC to another area and placing him into a different area of the game messes it up, because how are you using a navigational thing or anything on that mod, that NPC, putting that NPC outside where it's supposed to be will cause the NPC to have problems, because it's trying to utilize the data from where you took it. So you literally have, when you are making a mod from start to finish, you not only have to make, you literally have to make brand new everything. If you copy an AI package onto another AI, even if you did it from scratch, it's copying that specific AI's package. You're copying the way it goes to bed, how it rides, how it looks, how it interacts, everything. You literally have to understand to go to every single page of every single tab and remove everything from it and rename it, so you're disconnecting it from the mod. That is one of the main reasons people have problems with mods. All they do is they copy something, and then without removing all the data, they start using it. So now you're literally using the exact same information in a different place in the game. That brings me to the problem of when you make something, that brings me to the making people aware of what happens when you place something into a game and why mods can have a conflict. You can screw up the entire game from simply a rock or a crate, and here is why. When you put something into the game, you're adding something to the game that the game doesn't have. Even separating it can cause a problem, because let's say an NPC is walking around. Hold on one second, let me read this. Give me a second. Right, exactly. That's basically it. And it's not just the NPCs. It's everything in the entire game. Everything that does that. Anything you do to that must be removed. But even removing it, you still have to understand what happens when you place them into the game. So this is where things really get tricky. So what happens is, if you take, let's say an NPC is programmed to walk from A to B, and it goes into a house or whatever it is. And like I said, I am really going to get into the intricacies of this, because you're going to be amazed at how ridiculous this is. And like I said, it's hard for me to explain because there's so much information here. All right, so starting with this, I'm gonna build it up and then put it into perspective for you, and then I'll start tying in console commands with this to get you to understand how this works, because this is a real mess. This is a big mess, and like I said, if you don't understand this, you can literally mess up the entire game with a little rock. Okay, so if an NPC is programmed to go from A to B, that is the NavMesh navigational path, or whatever you want to call it, the AI package that it follows. If let's say you put a crate into the game, and it had food or whatever it is, a rock or whatever, let's say you made a rock be hidden, hollow, whatever. Let's say you just basically put a container in there. Changing the picture on the container doesn't have any, changing a picture has nothing to do with how the item that the object you are interacts. All it's doing is putting the interaction data onto the picture. So you can make a rock be a sword. You just have to know how to do it. Now, it's a little bit more complex than that, but that's what I'm getting at. So let's say, for sake of conversation, you take a barrel that you want some random item in it, and you put it into the game. If you aren't aware of how that NPC or NPC's patterns work, you could literally put it in the path of the NPC, and then the NPC will never be able to go to point A to point B. Now, why that's important is because if that NPC that you block that path to can't get to B, it can cause problems further on in the game you don't even know about with stuff it's not even connected to. So here's my example. Let's say NPC A has to be, let's say Region 1 and NPC A. Let's say Region 6. I'm just using regions for example. Region 6 requires that NPC to be there after you trigger something else off, which is, like I said, this gets really, really complex and intricate. So, again, I'm going to build this up, so this is going to be a little bit hard to follow. So if you're having a problem following this, let me know and I'll back up and I'll explain it better. So you have NPC A going to Region 6 at 5 p.m. We'll just say. Putting a barrel into that NPC's path, no matter what time it is, doesn't matter. The NPC will be blocked from being able to get to B, and thus it'll never show up in Region 6. So what you've done is you've caused a problem with any quest connected to that. Even though the quest isn't directly connected to the NPC not showing up screws up the entire quest line, because the quest line can only be triggered if that NPC is there. That brings it to a completely different problem, which branches off and makes an even bigger mess with stuff that's not even connected to this NPC, by having other triggers that rely on that trigger to be triggered off not to happen. So you basically can cause a mess with a barrel. And so if you don't understand that, and you don't understand the impact, what possibly, it's not about what could happen, it's not about what can happen, it's all about what could happen. And so unless you go through every single NPC, there's no way to know that. The creation kit allows you to dictate and find very specific things in these data. So as you can see, this isn't a simple process. You have to know how the game works. You have to understand the consequences of your actions and what's going to happen. So now, let me bring this in and try to put this into perspective. Let's say an NPC, you had a quest where an NPC needed to be inside the Thieves Guild. Now, let's say you did something. Okay, that's no problem. You're out of here? That's cool. I'm still going to explain it so you'll be able to find it. This is going to be an extensive video. So anyway, thank you for stopping by. I mean, I'm just going to keep talking. Anyway, for the rest of you, what happens is, if you're supposed to meet an NPC in the Thieves Guild, all right, what happens is, and let's say, everything I'm saying is a hypothetical. This is just an example to show you how intricate this is programmed. So don't say this is how it is. So let's say an NPC needs to get into the Thieves Guild because you have a quest triggered in there. And let's say that NPC is required. That quest has two different trigger points. Not only is the NPC in there, but how the NPC got in there. So basically what happens is, if a quest can have multiple triggers in order to trigger it. So in this particular case, in this particular case, sorry, I'm laughing at that for chat right now. Okay, I'm not laughing at you, I'm just laughing at what you said. So anyway, in this particular case, quests have triggers. And in order for a quest to be triggered and completed, you must meet all the requirements for that trigger. If a requirement is missed, that quest will never trigger. Doesn't mean it's broken. You can break the quest. Breaking something in the game is not the same thing as the game being broken. So what happens is, again, I keep repeating this, so let me get to the point. Let's say an NPC you had to meet in the Thieves Guild triggers a quest, but the second part of the trigger is that NPC, the trigger is going through the front door. If that NPC gets into the Thieves Guild, that quest still won't trigger because you didn't open the door. So what happens is, not only does the thief have to open the door, but he has to go into the Thieves Guild to trigger this quest. So this is why console commands screw the game up. Let's say the NPC didn't go there. Whether or not, and you bring the NPC to you in there, guess what? You skipped the NPC opening the door. Now your quest is broken. So as you can see, it's not a simple thing. There are things you have to watch out for all these triggers. And so when people make these mods, they don't, this is all the stuff you're not told. And so when you make these mods, you have to understand that this is exactly how the game works. Why a console command can mess up things that aren't even related to it. Why, just because you don't see a problem with a mod doesn't mean that the problem doesn't exist, because that's back to that. Let's say in order for a problem to make a mod show, in order for a problem to show up in a mod, you have to do very specific things. If, let's say for example, the problem of a let's say a problem with the mod encounters on the Imperial, in something in the Imperial quest line. If you never do the Imperial quest line and you do the Stormcloaks, you'll never see the problem. That doesn't mean that the problem doesn't exist. That just means you never encountered it, because the problem is actually on the Imperial side, not the Stormcloaks. But even if you did do the Imperial side, you can still miss it, because there may be a specific thing and a very specific amount of things that you have to do previous that leads up to that causes that problem. So even joining the Imperial side may make you so you still don't even see the problem. So this is why Skyrim mods have problems. There is a major difference between using the creation kit to create a mod, to make a mod, and making mods using the creation kit. Does that make sense now? I'll give the chat time to answer. I'm just giving the chat time to answer if they want to ask any questions or anything else like that. So now that everybody has this information, you start to see why, well, mods, a properly made mod. Yeah, it's a lot. Like I said, making mods it's a very intricate process. You can't just throw something into the game, especially the way Bethesda designed. Sorry, ZeniMax Media designed it, not Bethesda. Bethesda's just a publisher. So when you look at this, everybody literally says, "Oh, the information I'm talking about doesn't matter." Yeah, actually it does, because every single time everybody ignores this stuff. It causes problems. Now, I'm not saying don't make mods. Use whatever you want. You can use whatever you want. Just be aware of what you're doing. That brings me into this next issue, which is a major problem that is a total miscommunication and misinformation. Okay. I'm going to explain to you that Bethesda does not want their games modded. That's going to make a real problem here, because people are going to say, that's not true, they released the creation kit. Well, let me clear up something here. If you actually read the terms of service on the creation kit, okay, this is messed up, because this doesn't really have anything to do with why mods have a problem, but this is a problem in the modding community. Okay, on the surface, everybody thinks that when they make a mod and upload it, it's their mod and everything else, even if they made the damn thing from scratch. That's on the surface. The reality is that is 100% false. Nobody owns a mod as soon as it's uploaded to the internet. And the reason why is because the information you're using in that mod requires the game to run. If you read the terms of service, any and all parts of the game belong to ZeniMax Media Online Incorporated. Period. If you want a mod to remain yours, do not upload it to the internet, because you just lost all rights to it. Bethesda does not need your permission to take it and use it as their own. They don't need your permission. You gave that permission away when you clicked I agree when you installed the creation kit. The creation kit, or mod making, so to speak, is literally to enhance your own game experience. It outlines that clearly in the terms of service for the stuff that nobody reads. Now, what's really interesting about this is to actually verify this, I had Bethesda on the phone. I had an audio call in a video that I made to Bethesda where Bethesda actually explained that. That didn't come from me. That came from Bethesda. People still argued it. It is amazing what people argue about. So now you're not telling me I'm wrong. You just told Bethesda that they told you how it works, and you're telling them, nope, that's not how it works. It's amazing. So when you upload a mod to the internet, it no longer belongs to you. All mods, doesn't matter what it is. People think because a game developer can't remove a mod site, that means somehow they want their games modded. Go look at Rockstar. Rockstar has been trying to remove GTA Garage for the longest time, but they can't do it. Some legal action is preventing them from actually doing it. It doesn't make the mods any less legal, or they don't. It's not that they don't belong to Rockstar, because anything you use in a game for anything doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the game manufacturer. So the Nexus actually doesn't have correct information on it, and anybody saying, well, this is my mod, you need my permission to use it, is false. That statement does not protect you because the information you uploaded already belongs to the game company. You cannot copyright an already copyrighted piece of material, despite even if you made it from scratch. You are literally legally releasing your bind to that thing as soon as you upload it, simply because the game uses it. As soon as you use something, or something that requires the main game to use, or any of it, doesn't even matter. The company owns it, period. You don't own it. You cannot tell somebody to use it. You cannot tell somebody to give you credit for it. Go ahead. What's really funny is you can take any mod from the Nexus, and claim it as your own work. And there's not a thing that anybody can say they'll sue you. Good, let them try it. Watch how fast that gets laughed out of court, because the first thing the court system's going to ask you is who owns it. If they try to say you do, say that's not true. The terms of service dictate that the company owns it. You can't own intellectual property. It's like trying to say you made a Deadpool mod and then saying it's yours. No, Disney owns that intellectual rights property. Doesn't matter who friggin' made it. It doesn't matter how you made that from scratch. The only reason that the Deadpool game was stuck in limbo is because before Disney owns the rights to it, and after the company gave it up, there was nobody that actually owned that property. So Disney can't get at it due to some legal action, even though that they own it, because they didn't own it at the time the game was made. So at that point, it becomes who actually owns it. So there's a conflict. So that's a little bit different from what I'm talking about. Any mod uploaded to the internet does not belong to the creator. Period. It belongs to the game company, and the terms of service will dictate that. And the other reason why I said Bethesda doesn't actually want their games modded is because, try this, if you don't believe me, try this. Put mods into your game, and then call Bethesda and say you have a problem with it. Call customer service and say you need help with a problem, a tech problem. The first thing that they're going to ask you is, do you have any mods installed? Any unofficial patches or anything that doesn't belong to them? If you say yes, they will say you have to uninstall them, call us back because we can't help you. If people don't understand that that's why they're not saying don't mod your game. They're saying they don't approve modding because they can't help you if you screwed your game up using something that they didn't make. It has to straight out be nothing in it. You can't even have like a simple follower in there. They'll tell you any mods you must remove, otherwise we cannot help you. Because basically you're calling because you put something in the game and now you're calling us? No, wrong. Remove it and then see if the problem happens. That brings into another problem where the information that you do, once you mod a game, here's another thing that it's I don't want to say this happens all the time, but you have to assume this happens. Once you have modded your game save has that information in it. Regardless of whether you remove the mod or not, doesn't matter. The game save is now basically screwed because the game save has been altered. The data in the game save has been altered, or whatever it is you altered. In other words, it has an original piece of data in it, and anything that's added over to it is added into it. But if you have something that actually alters something in the game, the game save will actually save that alteration. Removing the mod won't revert that alteration because the alteration has been saved like that. So that's another reason you can run into problems. I'm not saying you will, but I'm saying that's one of the things you have to look out for. Mods alter the data in the game save as well. Now, the reason why that's different from the actual file in the game is because of this reason. When you open up the any, let's say, the game directory, you will see a Skyrim.esm, and you will see any additional any additional mods or whatever it is that say .esp. So the question I have here is, does anybody even understand what those extensions stand for? Because this ties in with understanding why a game save data can get messed up, but the game's data can't. I'll explain to you how the game actually creates the mod when you're saving it. Does anybody know what .esp and .esm even stand for? I was going to give the chat a little time to reply because it's delayed. Okay. A .esm, the letters ESM stand for Elder Scrolls Master File. The .esp stands for Elder Scrolls Plugin. That's what it does. Now, what happens when you make a mod, when the mod is getting created, the reason it never touches the .esm is because the .esm is locked. You can't alter that. It would be like trying to have if I set up a notepad document and I locked it to read only, you can open the document and change it, but when you go to try to save it, it won't save it. It'll say the document's locked, you can't alter it. Even though you altered it completely on the screen, it won't alter it when you save it. And the ESM files in the game are locked. You can't touch them. What happens is the plugin file is created with the additional data for the game. So what happens is when you go to the main game, the reason you have to go to the data files and check off which plugins you want to use is because basically the plugin allows the system to run the main game, but when that plugin goes in, it's basically saying, here's new data I want you to read. So it will override the game's master file from, reading the original what's in the master file, because the plugin file allows the game to read the plugin as part of the ESM. But when it creates it, it can't save it in the ESM, so it creates it in a separate file called a plugin file. That's why if you try to name a .esp to a .esm, it won't work. I mean, you probably could get it to work, but it quite doesn't work that way. So when it creates a mod, when a mod is created, it's basically running the ESP alongside the ESM, but the data in the ESP for that particular segment is now being read it's being read as part of the ESM, so the game doesn't know the difference. That's basically in a nutshell how the system works, what those things mean, and how it gets created when it actually makes it. So, as you can see, I don't just understand how the game works, I understand how the game works. I understand all of this information, and if you actually go try to find this information, you can't. It's not in any video or anything else, but yet people will say this information is not important. You cannot tell me, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying anybody that tries to tell you the information I just explained on how the game works is not relevant to making mods has no clue to what they're talking about. And I'm not saying don't make mods. Use whatever you want, but just understand when you do, it's the way it is. You know what I mean? Now, I said something incorrect that I want to correct myself on in the stream. A properly made mod is separated from the rest of the game's data. That is why, if the base data is still there in the game, despite any updates, your mod will never affect that, because your mod is using the base data that doesn't exist. It's using its own data. So you can still run any mod that you make that you completely disconnect from the game in with the update, because the update doesn't affect the original data. The update updates what's currently in the game. A properly made mod that disconnects its game data doesn't have anything to update. It's just there. It would be the same thing as if you made that mod with the update. It doesn't touch the game. It doesn't touch that, because as far as the game's concerned, that's just something in the game, and that the game updated something else. So even if it updates what your mod is, the game considers not, it doesn't have any, your mod is disconnected from that data, so it's impossible for it to cause a conflict. Now, for me to say two mods can't cause a conflict is not quite true, because at the point that I'm talking about is separating data, even if you separate the data, you can cause a conflict, because eventually what happens is you're going to use the same space in the game as somebody else. So if you use the same space as somebody else in a game and you have those two mods running, yeah, you will cause a conflict with that. But that's not because you copied the data. That's just because two people use the same space. That's not even, there's no possible way to avoid that. Somebody in the game somewhere that out of all the mods made on every system will eventually use a space somebody else uses. So to say they don't cause a conflict isn't quite true, but to say that they don't cause a conflict because of updates or the way they're made is true. So I just wanted to clarify that. And so if you guys want, I can eventually I can have a live stream demonstrating the use of, like, I can go through, and I'd have to train myself how to use the creation kit, but I can go through and actually show you piece by piece a setup that you can use and everything else that will, if you're interested in modding, how to use it and stuff like that. That way you can take the information that I have and apply it to the actual modding, so you can actually use the system. Because I'll go into explaining how to even adjust the screens. I'll tell you, like, what does what. I'll give you information that's just unbelievable. So that's basically the explanation I wanted to give, and why when I say somebody was saying something that's not quite true, I'm not talking down to them. I'm just saying the conversation that happened in your stream, Witcher, was the information that people always use. They're missing the information that I just explained, which explains why what they're talking about is not quite correct. There's a little bit more to it than that. That's why when I said, you have to disconnect your mod, if people are copying it, somebody goes, oh, okay, that actually does make sense. I get what you're saying now. So it's a little bit different when you're dealing with mods. So I just wanted to clarify that, because as you can see, it's not just, I don't understand the system. I understand how the game works. I understand what happens when you do to it. I understand all the possibilities to come up with something. I understand what causes a problem with a mod. I understand how to make them and everything else in the list. It just goes on and on and on. So as you can see, this is something I'm extremely versed in. Now, do I know everything in the creation kit? Hell no. I can't put in, like, swords. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do 3D modeling. But not knowing that doesn't change the fact that I know if I did, I would know how to put it into the game without causing a problem. So I'm going to give you an example on a couple of the mods I made, because let me go find them and I'll link them in the chat. Just give me a second. Okay, so that's a mod that I came up with. Now here's the thing, it's really hard to come up with an original kind of mod, because everybody's using, naked mods or whatever it is, which I find a problem with the damn Nexus anyway, because the Nexus was supposed to be appropriate, and then they have all these naked mods on there, so they can't even follow their own damn terms of service. So anyway, that particular mod wound up being the baselines for a lot of mods that people use, because before that mod, before I uploaded that concept didn't exist. I created that concept. I also created this concept, so just give me a minute. I gotta get the other one out of the Steam Workshop. Okay, so here's my Steam. I don't like Steam. This is before I got into real big problems with them. That's my Steam Workshop page, but some of them are just busted, so give me a second. This particular mod in general is the one that I'm going to focus on here. That concept didn't exist until I uploaded it. So the first one and the third one are baseline concepts that a lot of modders started using because nobody came up with that idea before I did. I was literally the first person to create that. So in retrospect, not to be cocky, but I'm responsible for some of the mod baselines that a lot of the mod baselines that use this principle. I was the creator of this principle. And so what I did with the first one took me a week to make because I not only had to go in and change the colorization of every single item in the entire game, I had to get it so when you equipped a person with it, it didn't have problems. I won't even begin to describe some of the problems I had with the third mod that revolved around this. So when I did the third one, I had to literally create a completely new item in the game. I had to complete a recipe for the game. I had to complete how to actually connect it. Now one of the main problems I had with that is getting the damn items legendary. It was just so hard. And so I actually came up with, if you take a look, it does delete all the original mod data that you have on yours, but if you take a look at it, it basically increases this. I literally created a completely brand new armor set in the game by using combination of other armors and stuff like that. And so what you have is, with the Hearthstone weapons and mods, is if you take a look at my mods, they're all playable. They're not overpowered. They're not something that you can just break the game with. These mods are playable. Somebody asked me, well, why did you put this at 100%? You know, why do you need this and this? It's because if you take a look at the weapon data that I did, I had to balance it off. I increased the speed, the reach, and the damage, and everything else on the hit ratios on these things, and I had to balance that off with all of them. There's another mod that I was actually in the process of making, which is actually really interesting because this doesn't exist yet either, and I was originally going to do it, and then I started messing around with it, and then it just gave. I didn't care about it. And one of the main reasons I didn't care is because I couldn't get it to work. I knew what I wanted to do, I just couldn't get it to work. So if I spent long enough on it, it would, but it would be a little weird. So anyway, what I basically did was, a lot of the mods that I have in there are incomplete because I just threw them up there, and I just didn't give a crap. You know, I was seeing, that was the base pieces of what I started learning. Those were my very first things. But the first one here, the ice armor, and then the Hearthstone weapons and armor, those were after I understood totally how to do the modding. So those mods to this date work. Now the other thing that might not work is something that I got a lot of credit for that people did. I realized it was misworded, so it was a little weird. So give me this. I got to wait, that's not it. Wait a minute, I think I put the wrong one in there. No, I did that right, okay. So just give me a second. I gotta find something I'm looking for. This was one of the hardest mods to do. The other ones were hard, but this was actually one of the first hardest mods I did. What I did was, it was kind of like weird. It's kind of misworded, and I didn't understand that at first because somebody did it. So what I basically did was, I tried the best I could to explain it that particular mod allows you to put enchantments onto items that don't have that enchantment ability. So what it wound up doing was, it wound up allowing people to enchant every piece of armor that they had on them with any type of mod. Because the boots only allow certain mods on them. The gloves only allow certain mods. This mod allowed any enchantment to be put on any item. Because I didn't believe in the fact that that should exist. So it's not just my explanations for this stream. I actually have applied what I said, and I've come up with really original concepts that a lot of modders use. I don't want to say a lot of modders use, but any mod that uses the principle of splicing two items together came from me. Before I did that, nobody came up with that. Especially the way I did it in the game. So that whole mod process required not only creating a completely new set of armoring that I took from our existing armor. It's not colored the best, but the whole thing wasn't to be colored. The whole thing was about the concept. And so, same thing with the Hearthstone weapons and armor. Like, who came up with that? You know what I mean? Who came up with, oh shit, I can make these, you know what I mean? It's like kind of interesting. So I came up with another use for Skyrim with the ice armor, ice weapons and armor, you know, or the ice armor is what it is. It actually literally strengthens the armor. So it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't just the ability to do that, it was the ability to create them. And on top of that, allow you to enchant them with at legendary status. It took me forever to find that out. Now with the Hearthstone weapons and armor one, the reason I had a problem with that was because when I was messing around with trying to get it equipped, I would put the helmet on a character and his feet would disappear, or I'd put his boots on, his helmet would be on the ground. I'm like, man, it was so annoying to try to get that to work. It was so hard because I was using my own. I literally had to make a new piece of armor from the existing stuff while detaching all the data from it. Now the point two, the horse can't be ridden. That was in conjunction with some idiot that was making mods that was saying that a conjured horse could be ridden, but that's not true. A conjured horse, it can, but it can't be ridden. A conjured horse will never be allowed to be ridden if you don't attach something very specific inside that a horse is considered an NPC, by the way. So if you don't have a very specific, there's something very specific in the horse data, the NPC, you know, the piece of, you know, the thing that makes the horse, or whatever you want to call it. There's something explicitly that needs to be put in there because the game doesn't know what the picture of anything is. There is a very specific piece of data that tells the game that this picture is whatever it is. So without putting a very specific piece of data into the horse, the game can't recognize it as a horse, thus you would never be able to ride it. Now the tricky thing is you could probably put this data in everything else, but you'd have to totally change the graphics on how what you're putting that item on works. You know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting to know how the entire system works and what you need to do or anything else when you're putting these mods together. So you need to know, like, if you put a knife at an angle and sticking out of the table, unless you know how to get that knife to stand up or like how the game does it, you'll have a problem doing it. And then same thing with like sticking. I had a mod that I was making around that I used when I teach people how to make mods, or one of the examples I used in my modding videos. It was actually on my other channel. The channel got taken down, but one of the things I did was to explain how to do it was I gave an example on what to do, and then I had the player do it. So what happened, or I had the person making the mod do it. So what I did was I took a knife, I showed it, you know, an ebony dagger, and I stabbed the dagger through the book, and I hung the book up. However, there's a little bit more to it than that, but I wanted people to see, you know, this is how you would do this if you want to do this or do this. Now try this. So now, you know, when you're copying things and moving things around on the map, you have to know what you're doing. You have to know what keybinds do what and stuff like that to make it very easy to modding. Because putting something in the game is easy. Getting it to coincide with the game so it doesn't have a problem, that is not an easy process. So the entire, you know, this entire series that I made, plus this video now that I'm making with this stream and everything else, goes to show you, you can't just watch a YouTube video and then know how to mod. It doesn't work like that. There is no YouTube video out there, even if you watch combinations of them, that'll tell you the information that I just explained, that you have to know if you want your mod to work properly. It's just, it doesn't exist. So that's why I tell people, if you want to make a mod using the creation kit, go watch a YouTube video. If you want to use the creation kit to make a mod, then you have to be taught that process because it's a totally different complex issue. And before you even start, you have to know all of the information that I've already explained previously in this video. So, or I should say this stream. And so, when you're doing it, if anybody actually wants a lesson in how to actually use it. I can give you the basics, but it's you're gonna need, before you do this. I always tell people, this is not a simple process. If I were to teach you how to use the creation kit to make a mod, it's gonna take a minimal of 3 hours. And I used to tell people, if you want to do it, I'll be ready to do it at this time. Just let me know when you want to do it, because I will set aside the time that I have available and say, hey, here's the times, pick one. If somebody in the middle of that says, well, I got to get going now, I just will never teach them how to do it again, because I have clearly stated that this is not a simple process. You're going to go through a complex issue. Now, I do have something very specific. I'm not just I have things hidden within the teaching process that explain to you other things you wouldn't even realize I'm teaching you. This is literally, I teach you wax on, wax off. I'm teaching you certain things without you realizing I'm teaching you, but I don't tell you that, and I don't tell you what it is until I get to a specific point, so that way you realize that everything I taught you falls into place. So I have a very specific teaching method when I do this, and people are like, wow, that is really ingenious. And because of that, I have actually had people that were having problems making mods went off and did it their own and didn't even want anything to do with the modding community, because if you take the time to listen to what I'm saying, you realize that the modding community doesn't really know what they're doing. They really don't. And it's not to put them down. It's just everybody wants to do everything real fast. I got to get this done. And they're more anxious to use the mod than realizing you have a more rewarding experience with putting the mod up. You know what I mean? That you make it proper. You test it. And so if anybody wants this idea, I don't really care, because normally people ask me what I'm working on. I will never tell them. I won't tell them until it's released. Not because I don't want somebody stealing my idea. That's only part of it. But you got to remember, I come up with original concepts that it's really hard to come up with an original concept. Like the concept I'm about to tell you doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, because you're doing things. I don't want to say the concept doesn't exist, but what I'm about to say doesn't exist. All right, so it involves a bow and arrow. It involves an arrow. Okay, think of how cool this mod would be, and tell me people wouldn't use this. Now, people have made exploding chickens, so when you hit them, they explode. How about this one? Make werewolf arrows, so when you shoot an NPC, the NPC becomes a werewolf because of the arrow effect. Go ahead, try and pull that one off. They don't exist, so what I'm saying is, using a bow and arrow to kill an NPC to turn him into a werewolf. Come on, you don't think that would be amusing? Who would that would be so great to use. Now, I'm not saying that to be cocky, but you can't tell me that's not a good idea, and you can't tell me that idea exists. It exists now because I mentioned it, but I had told everybody, goes, a couple people I confide in that obviously would never say anything said, that is wicked cool. And so it's interesting to come up with this stuff. So that would be interesting to be able to take an arrow and apply a werewolf attribute to it, so when it hits an NPC, the NPC turns into a werewolf. But as you can see, it's hard to do. It's not that simple. Like, I gave you that idea. It's so ridiculously hard to pull. It's not that it can't be pulled off. You can do it. But the one thing I also want to be clear is that the Skyrim script extender. The Skyrim script extender is for basically people who don't know how to script. If you know how to script, it renders the Skyrim script extender useless, because all that does is it takes a script and forces the game to run that mod or whatever it is with that script. So basically, the Skyrim script extender allows, it will say A is the mod, B is the script. And C is the Skyrim script extender. All Skyrim script extender does is take C and allows A and B to be used together. That's all it does. But if B is the script, you can annihilate the Skyrim script extender by understanding how to apply the script to the actual mod itself and embed it into the Papyrus scripting area. So once you understand that, you realize that the Skyrim script extender is only needed for a couple of things that there's nothing you can do in the Skyrim creation kit, which you probably could, but that's going way overboard. So, like, for example, the Skyrim script extender is useful for when you want to change the keybinds on something or have a keybind used on something. That's a totally different story because that's not something that's you could probably do with the creation kit, but it's not really programmed into the creation kit to use. So using the Skyrim script extender for that particular purpose is not the same thing as actually just running a generic script to get a mod to do something. Because if you know how to script, you can already get the mod to do it, thus not needing the Skyrim script extender. So that's just basically, I wanted to get that out of the way. Because a lot of people are thinking that these things are absolutely necessary. No, the Skyrim script extender for outside purposes of, using keybinds or anything of that nature isn't actually needed. It's just needed because people don't know how to apply the script to the mod. Now, that's actually caused arguments. People will argue with me, and they don't bother listening that you can put any script into a mod. Knowing how to put it into the mod to get the mod to work right is a totally different story. You can apply scripts into anything. Doesn't mean it's going to run. You have to know how the script applies to the mod. Simple as that. Which brings me to another problem on why videos on how to use scripting are not correct. Because if you look at the Wikipedia, I actually explained this to somebody, and they go, wow, I didn't realize that. Because he was arguing with me that the Wikipedia is there, and apparently he never went to it. And what finally what he wound up realizing is that the Wikipedia doesn't teach you how to mod. All the Wikipedia is for the papyrus. This is for the papyrus scripting. All the Wikipedia is for, it's a reference point for people who already understand how to papyrus script. The other reason why tutorials have a problem is because why I tell people don't watch a tutorial on how to on anything using on YouTube, because they don't explain crap, and there's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't even make any sense. So, for example, one reason I give, and this is actually in the beginning video of my my Skyrim creation kit tutorial on how to use it, is there was something to do with 3D modeling. If you actually take a look, I really wish to God I still had this video because I can't remember everything in it. It was just a 2-minute video or a 2-minute 30-second video or something like that, that explained why trying to learn something from one of these videos online is not, you can't go to these things and learn it because it doesn't make any sense. There's so many contradictions in it. So, for example, you're told how to open something inside one of these things. But what happens is, if you open up a sword, let's say you want the word, sword written on the sword, what you wind up running into is that it tells you to open this in this process, and then it says, here, save it, but it never tells you how to actually get the wording itself onto the sword. And without knowing that information, there's no way you can use what it just said. Furthermore, if you go down the page, it says, now open this and this. It never explains why you're opening it. When in reality, that's literally, according to what it says, is saying, well, wait a minute. I just opened that in this program. Now it's telling me to open it in this program. Why would it tell me to open something in this program when I already opened it in this program and never explained why I need to open it in this program? So there's a lot of missing information when you're dealing with that you have to know. Not only, you can't just tell somebody to open something and then, hey, here's the wording on it. As you can see, put the wording on it. Okay, tell me how to put the wording on it, because when you're dealing with 3D modeling, it's a totally different story. Because you have to know, first of all, knowing how to open the thing in a program doesn't help you. It's not going to help you if you don't know how to use the program. Now, that's kind of on the user. But when people start saying, go to this site, or go read this because it teaches you what to do, that's a lie, because it's not teaching you what to do. It's teaching you how to open it, and you already have to know how to do that stuff before you can save it. And then on top of that, you have to know why you would even be opening up that same exact thing in a different program to do what appears to be the similar thing. So people saying go to that is a lie. It's a cheap way just to get you to get out of something. It would be like opening a forum and then saying, hey, come here for answers, and then you're being told to leave the forum to go find the answer, and then you get redirected back to the forum. It would be the equivalency of having your keys locked in your glove compartment. And by the way, I got to bring this up with the division, but this would be the equivalency of having your keys locked in your glove compartment and then being told and having the car locked. So basically, your keys are locked in your locked in your car. They're in the glove compartment, and then you're told, go get the keys out of the glove compartment so you can unlock the car to get the keys out of the glove compartment. That's literally the circular logic people use. So when somebody says, I'm going to teach you how to, I'm going to teach you how to do this mod, and then they completely remove the fact that you need scripting for it, and then never tell you how to script for that mod. They have not actually told you how to do that mod. They skip over that and then try to use the excuse, well, that's not what this is about. No, that's exactly what this is about, because you specifically said, I'm going to show you how to do this mod. So that means if scripting is involved, you also need to explain the scripting, or otherwise you're not telling them how to do that mod. People will manipulate the wording on it, but in reality, if scripting is part of the mod and you don't teach it, then you have not taught them how to do that mod. Trying to say, well, you need to know about script, that's not my problem to do scripting, has nothing to do with the fact that they told you they were going to teach you to do it, and scripting is part of that. So you can't say you're going to teach somebody to do something and leave something out, and then use the argument that, you know, it's you taught them how to do it. It doesn't work. So all of these things are why Skyrim mods have problems. You know, you're not given full information. You're basically being told to go watch videos that don't explain to you the process for doing this. They miss all this information. You're being told to go to websites that are only reference points to learn how to actually script from the start and finish. You're never even told, like, half of these websites don't even have troubleshooting tips for what happens when you do, because I can tell you right now, I went to the wiki for the Hello World scripting mod and it doesn't work. Somebody's like, well, you're doing it wrong. I made a video showing it from start to finish that I literally copied what was written. I copied it. I used my mouse to copy and paste the scripting, and I literally made a video side by side showing what I was doing, showing it. I literally copied exactly to a T what was on there, and people still said I was doing it wrong. So it just goes to show you, people can't be wrong, and they can't be wrong about being wrong. What happened with the Hello World tutorial for me is that apparently the effect of it is supposed to go from A, B to C, but for some random reason, every time you go from A to B, it just opens up C without going through A to B. And then it doesn't go back, because people said you're supposed to press this and it's supposed to go A, B, C, reset to A, B, C. But however, if you actually follow, it may have been fixed now, but if you followed it when I did it, it didn't do that. It opened C and then never reverted to A. Despite I copied it to a T and had it on video. And so I said, okay, it says this, I open this. It says this, okay, I open this. It says this, I open this. It says, okay, now this line, I copied the damn line into this. And it still didn't work. So it's missing information on troubleshooting, saying it should tell you also, okay, this might happen. If it does, you need to back up to this point because this is where the problem would be. So these tutorials are not actually tutorials. All they are is people trying to make themselves act bigger than they are. I'm not saying all of them are doing this, but most of them do, because they act all big and bad. Look at what I can do. And they full well know that, you know, 50% of the people, I'll say 50% of the people that play these games don't know how to script. They fully already know that. That's like in the Division the other night. Some kid basically got into it with me, and I basically said, okay, I'll do what you say. I know you're trolling, but I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and go here and show you that what you're saying is not true. So we talked about the safe house. I'll get to my point in a second. And basically what had happened was, he knew exactly what I was going to do. He knew it. He knew exactly where I was going to go, and he waited till after I went there to say that's not what I'm talking about, instead of beforehand, because he knew. He set it up so he knew this, so he could basically try to tell me I'm wrong. And that ties in with these people that say, I'm going to show you how to make a mod. They fully are aware that you need to know how to script in order to do some of the things they're doing, yet they will tell you, I'm going to teach you how to do this. So and the average person won't look at the wording like that, but here is the thing between the average person and me. You can't, what you're saying is you are going to teach somebody from start to finish. If you missed a step in that, then your video is falsely titled. Period. Now, if you're going to do that, when I do a tutorial, like when I was doing something, I went into the modding community for one of the Xbox things, and they were talking about modding Fable. Now, a modified Xbox allows you to modify some of these files directly on the Xbox themselves. I won't even get into what I did with GTA 3, and then I got into a call with Rockstar about that. There was a long story. But the point is that Fable modded stuff, and what they did was they never explained how to get some of these things that they did activated until I came along and says, you're saying this works, but how did you get to do this, because this didn't work? What are you not telling us? So they went around and did all this. I'm like, okay, so why didn't you just say that in the first place? Why did I have to drag that out of you? And when you're doing that, how did you even forget to even add that? Because I've literally had to make a tutorial for people on how to make tutorials. It's ridiculous. So what what happens is when you have something open and you're going to teach somebody something, you need to go from start to finish while you have it open. Don't do it from memory. Do it from when you do it. That's why all my instructions are accurate. There is nobody on the face of this planet that can that will read something that I post on how to do an instruction and then not know how to do it. Doesn't even matter whether you even know what the hell I'm talking about. Follow the directions to get the end result. So when it came to Fable, and I put this whole instruction package up, I packaged it up and gave it to the site. But the first thing I said in my tutorial, is this assumes you already have a modified Xbox and know how to transfer files. If you do not, stop reading this. This will not help you. I clearly point blank said that right up front. So even though I said this is going to teach you how to actually get this to work and how to write these things, it's not going to teach you how to modify your Xbox to do this or how to use that. You need to learn that on your own because that's not part of this. So when somebody says they're going to teach you how to do something, they need to come outright state that, hey, you know, it's common courtesy. Whether it's common sense or not has no relevance to this. Don't say you're going to teach somebody something and then leave out steps and then actually argue with them saying, well, that's not what that means. No, you said you're going to teach somebody, teach them. Don't friggin' leave out steps and then argue. So, or if you're going to leave out steps, just say, hey, this assumes you already know how to script. I can't teach you how to script because that's too complex. This does rely on scripting. So if you don't know scripting, you're not going to be able to do this. How hard is that to say? That way, you've let the viewer know that, hey, this is going to be hard. If you want to do what I got to do, you have to know how to script. So it's the same process on this all around, and that is why I tell people all the time, a YouTube video, unless it has all the steps, which you won't even know that. How are you supposed to know if steps are missing? I've actually had math teacher. I've gotten into debates with math teachers. He goes, how are you going to tell me I'm missing something if you don't even know what I'm talking about? I said it's because I can't do it. If I can't get to the end result, you clearly missed a freaking step somewhere. I don't have to know it. I just know I can't finish it. So I don't need to know what you know. I just need to know that. I just need to show you that what you're talking about is missing information, preventing people from doing this. So it's one of those things that if you can't get to the end now, if you tell somebody, you know, hey, I can't open my disk drive or something, you'll probably get trolled for that, but that doesn't matter. You can't, as much as people want to say that's trolling or nobody can be that dumb, how do you know what they know? You don't know if that's a legitimate question. It probably isn't. I mean, obviously, you know, you have to assume somebody's trolling, but at the same time, you can't just if somebody asks that, answer them. What's the big deal with saying, here, press the button on your drive? You see that? Here's a picture. Press this. Why even go into this person's a troll or having an entire discussion or a blog about how dumb this person is? Just friggin' answer him and move on. It's not that hard. I mean, hell, I had to friggin' explain to somebody how to actually download WinRAR because they didn't even know what it was. Dumb as that sounds, doesn't matter. The person legitimately had no idea what WinRAR was. So I had to explain it to him. Another thing is the way people misread things on forums. So, for example, when Dragon Age Origins came out, they made that game based on the tactics menu. Now, people that were micromanaging, which was a way to do that in the game, were not understanding they were missing 50% of the gameplay no matter how much you explained it. They literally thought micromanaging your character was the exact same thing as the tactics menu, and it's not. The tactics menu actually can do everything that they're doing micromanaging because they were saying, well, micromanaging, you can't do this with the tactics menu. If you're saying that you can't do that with the tactics menu, that proves you don't understand how it's put together, which is the fault of BioWare. This is one of the main reasons I can't stand BioWare as a company. I can't stand them because they will make their game based around something specific in the same fashion ZeniMax does with this stuff, and then they will fail to, on all ends, provide the information on what makes that what they did with their game. So in this particular case, what you had is their bread and butter of that game was the tactics menu. And they failed to explain it. Now, that's a tricky situation, because basically the point is that people were asking how to use the tactics menu. Now, people that were familiar with BioWare games, and this ties in with the Skyrim issue, because you have a bunch of people who understand how to make mods, and then they don't understand why people are asking these questions instead of actually realizing what the person is asking. So, a case in point, an example on that is what I'm talking about here with the Dragon Age Origins. I actually got into an audio conversation over Skype with somebody I knew, and we were because he knew my videos, and he said, you wouldn't believe the stupidity of the questions that people are asking on the forum. Now you have to remember, BioWare made they basically prided the game of Dragon Age Origins off of the tactics menu. That was what they focused the showcase of the game on, because the system is what they were focusing on, the combat system. However, they failed to explain it, and that it caused a lot of people problems. They actually didn't understand how it was put together. Now, I had the biggest problem with that game. I had the biggest problem understanding, like, where the hell is this? And I went into a whole video, and then I said, okay, I basically wound up getting all information, and after that, I surpassed everybody else that knew it. That's why I delve into these games, like The Division. I may have had some issues with that, but I guarantee you, I will far surpass anybody now because I drilled everybody for the information. So anyway, back to the point. BioWare prided the game around Dragon Age Origins around the tactics menu, and then didn't bother explaining how to do it, which is dumb, which at the same time, it's hard, but it's not hard. So what happened was people were asking how to use the tactics menu, which is the question my friend said to me. These people are asking on the forum. He goes, oh, that's dumb. People asking how to use the tactics menu. The problem that people had in the forum is you have the experienced players asking the non-experienced players, why the hell are you even asking that question? And then you have the non-experienced players not being able to form their question properly to get their point across because they don't know how to formulate it, because they don't know there's no other way to ask that. And so what you have is a conflict, and that's where all these arguments came from. And that's when I blurted in. I said, cut the crap. When somebody asks how to use the tactics menu, they're not asking you how to open it. They're asking you, they need an example usage of a system that BioWare put into their game so they can actually use the tactics menu. As soon as I did that, a bunch of arguments stopped. My friend goes, oh my God, I didn't even look at it like that. And I said, that's not your fault. A lot of people don't understand when somebody's asking something how to back up and look at what they're asking. So when it comes to Skyrim mods, people say, just go do this, or just go here. No. And then if somebody doesn't understand it, it's because it's not that the person told them they didn't understand what to ask. They just using one-sidedness without backing up and explaining it. And so when somebody reads that, they'll go to a site, like I said, about the, opening the thing and opening up a picture in like 3D Max for this and then inputting it in. That site that tells you about 3D Max does not explain to you. It explains to you how to open it, but it doesn't explain to you the reason for doing it or how to do anything it says to do. It just said it goes from opening it to doing this to saving it. Now put the wording on this. Totally skipping how to do it. But yet, every single person that already understood how to do that was telling people that tells you how to do it because they already had information. And despite pointing out that it doesn't tell you how to get the wording on it, so why are you telling people to go there? Because it teaches you how to do this. Teaching you how to do this would also be inclined to teach you how to get the wording on it. They would then turn around and say, well, that's not our problem. Then stop directing people there if you know it doesn't do it. That's not right. And so that's another war that I had with people, because I was basically nullifying people that were in high stature, wanted people to go to that site to get traffic to it, and I was stopping people from doing that because it's one thing to tell people to go to a site, but they were literally lying to people about what that site does and then arguing they weren't lying because in their head they weren't lying. But the fact of the matter is, it was still missing information. So therefore they are lying. They're using their opinion and their own viewpoint to say it's explained because they already knew it. But somebody that doesn't know anything about that is not going to be able to go there and know what the hell to do. They're going to ask the same exact question. And that's a problem when you're using all these videos, especially when it comes to modding. So does that make sense now, guys? Now that I've totally explained like how to read stuff, it's like you'll never know what information is missing because there's no real way to do that. The only way to know what's missing is if you follow something through and then you get a point in time where they skip something that goes to here. Even if it's blatantly obvious, has no relevance to that. The step was still skipped. Trying to say, well, enough people did it so the step doesn't need to be there, nullifies the statement of, I've explained it. If you're going to explain it, that step must be there in order for the people to say, I've explained it. Trying to say that enough people knew isn't a fact. It's just an opinion. Because that's what if you go back and look at my Guild Wars 2 video, Doesn't matter whether people know what to do. I can look at a screen and click something. That has no relevance to the fact that unless you tell people to click it, it's not explained. Trying to argue that is obvious or how can you be that dumb is a nullified point. Either the screen says it or it doesn't. And this is the thing that gets me with gamers in general with these subject matters, is because they'll tell you they will literally overlook the fact that you're getting two, and this is the same thing with the Division. The Division tells you exactly what button to open the screen. It explicitly gives you the button and then tells you explicitly what tab to go to, and then it explicitly tells you what button functions on that tab. But then when you open the tab, there's no functional information on how that tab even works. So people ignore that the instruction is never completed. It gives, why would people say that it's silly to expect the developer to complete the instruction, but yet it's missing information, but yet the previous pieces actually are explicit? How is that silly to expect the developer, or try to say you don't need it, or anything else? My wife's turned into a werewolf, by the way. Arr, arr, you can hear her in the background. So anyway, the point I'm making is that you can't use, I don't want to say you, but I'm saying in general, gamers have gotten to the point where they will cherry pick information where they want, and you can't do that. So if you're going to explain the mod system, I guarantee you, if everybody just shut their mouth for once and listened to everything I said and understood how the game was programmed, the entire mods for Skyrim would almost have no problems with them. But instead of listening to me, they argue, and yet they keep having problems. So another way you prove that mods break the game, and why mods are causing more problems than people than they blame the game developer, it's the same concept I said at the beginning. People didn't like the consequence system, so instead of accepting it, they blame the game developer for, oh, this is broken, this is broken, this is broken. That's the first thing that comes up. And when you got a mass amount of people saying it's broken, before you know it, everybody thinks the game is broken, all because people didn't like the way it was put together. So when you're blaming people, you can't separate it, no matter, even if it's right. It doesn't work that way. Just take mine. I know what you mean. Don't worry. It'll turn up. Okay. Well, if she's gonna drive, then just leave the car key. Leave me the key here. I'll probably go out. Huh? You give? Okay, I see it. So, if anybody has any questions or anything else, or would like me to, make a video, if you're really interested in modding Skyrim, call information. Maybe they know. my ex-roommate, my ex-roommate called in. My wife's like, she can't find her keys. I'm like, call information. My ex-roommate, a long time ago, called information. She goes, can I help you? What city? He goes, no, I want to know how to cook a fucking pot roast. So he cooks it. She actually told him. It was just funny. So anyway, if anybody's interested, I'm going to end the stream in a minute, but if anybody's interested in wanting to actually really learn how to use the creation kit to make mods, if you're interested, I can just reteach myself real fast, and then I'll have an entire live stream on how to use that. And remember, it is going to take a while because there's a lot of stuff to go over, but that's about the extent of it. So like I said, I will make a video asking if people want me to do this, and then I'll leave. So for example, Witcher, what I'm going to do with the Skyrim creation kit, asking people if they want to do it, what I'll do is I'll make a video of it and you can see how it's done. That way you can see exactly how I did it. And that's not the only way. It's just the best way that I can figure out how to do it without having to be live streaming and then scroll through like 2 hours of chat to find out, what somebody wanted to do or anything else. So I just wanted to get that cleared up, and I hope everybody understands this now, that if somebody says something, it's like, again, the game, don't just say a game sucks. Don't just say, oh, the combat, I don't like the combat system. That's not an argument. That's an opinion, which you have a right to have. But if you're going to say something sucks, what about it? Give specifics. So, just remember that when you're watching these mods and stuff like this, next time you realize that, because I think now everybody that's listening to this will realize that when you're looking at it, most of the blame that went to the game developers really wasn't the developer's fault. It was people using mods. And like I said, you can verify that, because the thing that gets me is, before I close this stream, the thing that really gets me is that the history alone of Bethesda games in general, ZeniMax games in general, and this is not Skyrim. This is not just the Elder Scrolls series. This is literally any game that's been Bethesda has been modded or has put out. Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4, Elder Scrolls 3, 4, 5. You know what I mean? All of these things have the same exact problem with them. The pattern has been proven that the problem is coming from mods, because this is what happens with every single Bethesda game that comes out in existence since the history of, like, Morrowind in the Fallout series. You will find this problem. You can literally go search this. The pattern is the same when there's a problem with the game. The mods will be made. Even if the creation kit isn't out, people will still making mods because they're editing the files. They're opening up pictures, editing them, and messing with the data in them. Hell, one of the friggin' best Skyrim mods I've seen for the map was they edited the map data, which allowed you to zoom in and you could scroll through the map. It was actually really cool. So I actually want to find that again to use it, because that was really, really well done. So anyway, even without these mods, even without the creation kit, doesn't matter. The problem is, throughout the history, the pattern of people using mods and then saying the game is broken remains in every single Bethesda. It's the same situation every time. The game's broken. Here are the mods I used. Stop using mods, and if you're going to use mods, stop complaining your game is broken. Oh, the game's not broken, it's not the mods, it's the developer. They put this out, blah, blah, blah. And it happens with every single Bethesda game. Every single one of them. And like I said, if you go back and look at 99% of the people that have a problem with their game will say, hey, here's a problem with this broke, or how do I fix this? And the first thing that they somewhere in the topic is listed mods. As soon as you see a mod listed, as soon as you say, here, I did this, or here, I used a console command, them blaming the game developer, their credibility just goes out the window. And they will swear up, and despite that history been proven, people will swear up and down mods are not breaking the game. They'll say some do, but they will never attribute the problem to mods, despite the history proves it. So I just want to get that out of the way, and I'm actually going to end this stream now. So if anybody has any, I'll leave some time for people to reply before I close this to answer any questions they may or may not have. And keep an eye out for the video that I'll put up on, whether or not somebody wants me to do that. And if they do, you also need to put the time up that you want me to do it in, because I can set that time aside. I will state, what times I have available, so don't get me wrong. So I'm also not going to start it if people are not going to finish it either. That's just a waste of everybody's time. I will literally, even if one person wants to do it, I will literally legitimately take them through and go step by step on how to do this. So if you're going to do this, you're going to need the creation kit itself and things like that. And the other thing is that this will help you out, Witcher, so you can understand a way that I do it that makes it easier for me, at least, to figure out what people want me to do. So I will leave I'll leave like a minute or two for people to write anything in there that they want, and then I'll just close the stream if nobody replies. By the way, thank you guys for stopping by. Appreciate it. And I hope it was educational. I finished my coffee. Yay. Normally I have this is my green screen. It's really, the color of it is really messed up. It doesn't look bright. It's literally bright green. It's literally like fluorescent lime green. You can't even tell, but that's how it is. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm totally off the subject. I think it's really funny. Yeah, sorry viewer, you just came in. I'm actually going to end the stream now. I just got done explaining a bunch of stuff. You can go back and view the video once it's up or whatever it is. But I just want to point out that another thing that people love to misuse is the word autistic. And what's funny is people don't understand what that word means and are using it because everybody else is using it. And then when I correct them on it, you don't even know what that word means. My daughter is autistic. I know exactly what the word means. So when I see people using it, somebody's like, "Aren't you mad?" I'm like, "No, they don't even know what they're talking about. They're just copying other people they're blindly copying other people that don't know what they're talking about." So you got a bunch of people running around that have no idea what anything means. So anyway, I'm just gonna leave it at that for now. And like I said, thanks viewer for tuning in. Now, unfortunately, the stream's getting ready to end. So again, I'm just leaving a minute or two open. I'm leaving a minute or two open for people to post what they want in the stream, whatever, and then I'm gonna close this. So I hope everybody got enough information and understood the concepts of what I was talking about and things like that. So now you understand that there's a little bit, you can't just learn it from a video. You literally have to be sat down and taught, the way I was. Somebody taught me how to do certain things in the creation kit and throw a bunch of people that didn't know information. That's basically how I get my information. I would go from person to person to person around and basically wind up eventually between all the people with all the information. So I'm just babbling now to kill some time where people are replying in the chat. So you guys have met my wife and met my daughter. Well, haven't met them, but now you know who they are. So it's funny to say, you should get laid. I'm like, what does that even mean? Why don't you go rob a bank? What does that mean? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, by the way, some of the reasons that, just off the subject, some of the reasons people use for, not knowing something or stupid, what I call stupid comparisons. That's why in streams, you'll literally hear me state totally off the wall things that have no relation to each other in accordance to the comments people leave. So for example, somebody's like, well, you should go look this up because you're dumb or whatever it is. I'm like, that's like saying your computer sucks because you use Gmail. It doesn't make any sense. Somebody's like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, well, neither does the comment you said. So it's funny how people just do things. So with that, to the viewer that just joined, sorry buddy, I was just getting ready to close this stream. It's already set and done with, so if you want to go back and watch it, whatever. But I will tell you, to the viewer that just joined, if you're going to go watch this, please don't skip through anything, because if you do, you're going to miss parts of what I say that are actually crucial into what I'm, into the whole concept of talking about what's wrong with this. So it's literally, skip the first like 5 or 6 minutes, because that's just me, helping people out, doing a couple things that have no relation to the Skyrim mods at all. So it's just answering questions that people had from another stream. So that's about it, guys. I'm going to end this now. Take care, guys. See ya.